Today we're kicking off the summer season and painting soft ink-textured florals in Procreate, and we're even leaving some room for summer-themed lettering. Hey everyone, my name is Tila, and if we haven't met before, I am the voice behind your screen. I've listed the specs to this project on screen with me, and you can pick up the free color swatches right in the video description. Let's get into it. I've got my brand new canvas, and the first thing we're going to do is drop in our background color. So come into your layers, tap on background color, and it's going to be the brightest, lightest color on your second row. Next, we're going to pop in our composition, and we're going to build out our arrangement. And then we're going to add all the color and all the fun. So we need to build the structure first. And in order to do that, I'm going to grab a composition stamp from my Bouquet Maker brush set. I'll leave a link on screen and in the video description to that. There are a bunch of stamps in here, and this is what we're going to use to build out all of our florals really quickly and really easily. Even if you've never drawn flowers before, you're going to be able to create beautiful floral artwork. So I'm going to grab composition number 10 for this, and all you want to do, I've got black selected right here, just tap it in with your finger. That's a little too small, so I'm going to come up a bit. I'm going to come up to like 40%. Stamp it in with your finger, and then you can position it where you want it to go. This is still kind of small. We're not going to use this in the final artwork, so it's okay to scale it up. I just didn't want it to get so blurry and pixelated from scaling up from such a small stamp. You'll notice I'm filling out the majority of my canvas right here with it, and then I'm going to reduce the opacity. That way we can see the new stamps that we're going to put in all the different places. So any shapes that are filled in with color, so these circles right here, those all represent floral elements, and obviously everything else that's empty is a foliage element. So I'm going to reduce this opacity down to like 30%, so I can still see it, but I'm going to see everything else I put on it even better. I'm going to create a brand new layer, and we're going to switch to white. So double tap where white is, and you'll get true white. And I'm going to come into my free gift tags set. So if you're an Every Tuesday email subscriber, you've probably already gotten this before, and if you're not, you can still access this in my free resource library. So I'll leave a link on screen and in the video description to pick up this entire set of gift tag stamps for free. I'm going to use tag number 4 for this composition, so I'm just going to tap it in, and this time I do want it closer to the size I'm going to be using it because this is going to be part of the final artwork. So I'm going to come up to like 45-46%. I can always scale down, but if you scale up, you're stretching pixels, so that's when you get those blurry edges, and we don't want that. I'm going to get rid of the little hole punch on it, so I'm just going to grab my eraser, erase that away, and then I can just drag my white in here, and now I've got a white tag. And I'm going to reduce this down, make sure uniform is selected in the bottom. And what I'm looking to do is I want some of these florals to overlap that corner, and I want this floral to overlap this corner. And I still want this little floral to peek out and this one beneath it to peek out, so it all feels kind of balanced, even though we don't have things that are like top and bottom and sides. It's kind of asymmetrical balance here. So that is what I'm going for. And this feels like a pretty good size. I'm not caring so much about it sitting exactly perfectly centered in my canvas. I'm looking more at where it's positioned within all of my floral elements. So that is where I'm going to leave it. Next, we're going to build out the structure of all of our florals. So what the florals look like as they're put in here. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, and we have to be really aware as we're building this out which floral elements are going to sit on top of the tag and which floral elements are going to sit behind the tag. So if they're on top of the tag, that means the layer needs to be above the tag in the layers palette. If it's behind it, it means it needs to be beneath the tag in the layers palette. So I'm going to double tap where black is again. I like using black to build mine out, but feel free to use any color you'd like. And I'm going to take care of the largest flowers first. That's usually how I work because I know that those flowers are going to get the most attention, so I like picking them first. So I'm going to come into my flat hero category. This is back in the Bouquet Maker brush set. And the flower I'm going to use for this top corner is going to be hero number 3. So I'm going to tap that in. This artwork, these stamps that we're putting in are not part of the final artwork, so don't worry about scaling these ones up. We're just using them as a base to create our final artwork. So I'm rotating it a little bit so it looks like it's facing this way, just a little bit more, giving it a little more energy. And that looks good. Create a brand new layer, And now we're going to do the bottom corner that's overlapping the gift tag. In this one, I think is number 55, hero number 55. Stamp that in and position it. Make sure you're on a new layer, that way you can freely rotate, scale, adjust as needed. So I'm getting relatively close to what the composition is telling me, but in no way do you have to stick super strict to it. You can alter it however you want. It's just a guide to give you that balance. That feels pretty nice right here. And I'm also looking at the scale as it relates to this one. This is my main here. I want this one to be a close second. Now everything else is going to sit behind the tag, so I'm going to be working in layers beneath the tag now. So I'm going to come back down. This is my composition. So I'm just going to select this one, create a brand new layer right above it. And now let's add in this floral and this floral. So let's take care of this one first. I'm going to come back into my flat hero category, and I'm going to grab hero number 54 for this one. This is what it looks like, and I think I'm going to reflect it. So flip horizontal. We'll reflect it like this and just tuck it in here. I just want it poking out a little bit. There we go. Create a brand new layer, and we're going to take care of the bottom one now. And the bottom one's going to be hero number 7. Stamp that in. And I want a little bit of the stamen poking out right here so everyone knows that it's a separate flower, but I don't need to have like a ton of it showing. Okay, so I've got my main hero flowers in here, and this one's going to be a supporting flower. So now I'm going to create a brand new layer and head into the supporting category. When I look at this, you can see I've got a bunch of circles, so I'm going to look for a stamp. I've already got it selected here, supporting number 55. It's a stamp that has multiple flowers. So you could choose any of the stamps that have multiple flowers in them, and it would work fine right here if you want to follow the composition more closely. So I'm going to stamp that in. And I'm going to rotate it a bit so it's got a little bit more energy here. Scale it up. You don't have to show all of them. I think I want to cut this bottom one off just a smidge. And I do want this one to tuck behind the hero flower just to have things interacting a little bit more. And I'm going to remove this overlap. Let me turn off the composition so it's a little easier to see. You can see that they're overlapping right here, so I need to mask away this part. You could also erase, but if you've taken my free Procreate for Beginners class, you already know about masking, how it's a non-destructive form of editing, and the one that I recommend whenever you need to remove things that you may need to get back in the future. So in order to do that, I'm just going to tap on the layer thumbnail and choose mask, make sure black is selected, and I need to switch to a drawing brush. So I've got my edgy ink, and I can paint this away. And if I change my mind later and I need to bring it back, all I have to do is switch to white and I can bring it right back, which you can't do if you erased. So that's why I use masking. All right, we are in really good shape now. If I turn on the composition, all I've got left are my foliage elements. So we're going to start drawing those in, but we're actually going to make this part final artwork. It'll just save you a step and make this a lot quicker if you want to follow along with me. So all of the foliage elements are going to be in the background. They're not overlapping any of the floral elements. So I'm going to come all the way to the bottom near my composition, create a brand new layer. I'm going to switch to my darkest green color, which is the first one in the top row. And now we're going to head into the last brush set that's part of this tutorial. It is my newest brush set. It's called Ink Lovers. And there are a bunch of really fun drawing and painting brushes in this set. So we're going to use several of these to create our outcome. It's going to give us a lot of variation in texture, which is really beautiful. I'm going to start with the Peculiar Ink brush, and I'm going to use this to actually outline everything here. But I'm going to do all the foliage separate. So just where the foliage is, I'm going to trace right over what I've got. If you want to use the foliage stamps that came with the Bouquet Maker brush set for this, to make it a little more unique, you are welcome to do that. This is just a little bit of a time saver to trace what the composition already gave us. And you'll notice that this brush has some really beautiful texture to it, and it'll break from time to time. So you can see I get these really pretty breaks in it, which I love. Just gives it so much personality. It can get a little confusing in this area with what's what. So what I like to try to do is to just see where my floral elements are and any gaps. So like this one was to signify the supporting floral. So I knew that I needed to fill this in with something right here. Let me make it follow this stroke a little closer. And since I have an open gap here, I can just add in another shape that's similar to the shapes on this foliage. So I'm just kind of looking at where these flowers are hitting and any open gaps I have. So I wouldn't draw through here because this is a flower right here. So sometimes you have to kind of like do a double take as you're working. So I go a little bit slower when I get to these more confusing areas. And like this one, I'm going to need to paint this leaf all the way down because this was a circle right here to just signify where that flower went. Let's take a look at how everything now appears without the composition stamp in the back, because I know we're going to have to add some stuff to fill in some gaps. I don't think we'll have to add too much actually. This looks pretty good. I do have a gap right here that I need to fill, but everything else I think we're all right. I might add in a leaf element here. That seems a little better. Maybe another one right here. I could even have one pass through. I'm also going to extend this type of element a little further here because it got cropped off so much you didn't actually get to see very much of it. So this is just a line with these teardrop shapes for leaves. For this gap that I've got right here, since I've got these teardrop foliage elements right here, I'm going to do something similar to this. We're just going to have to imply a lot of these shapes since we've got a lot going on here. I'm just going to tuck these in a little bit, and I don't want it to go straight up, so I'm going to kind of have it veering off to this area right here just to fill that in a little bit more. So now we're going to finish outlining everything else, and we're going to take care of our flowers next. And if it helps, you can turn off your foliage. So let me label this one foliage. And we're going to start adding in the flowers. I can do, these two flowers can be on the same layer, and then the rest of the flowers can be on the same layer because the rest of the flowers are all behind the tag and these two are on top of the tag. So you can kind of pick which ones you want to do first. I think I'm going to do the top ones first. So because they're on top of the tag, I need to make sure I create the layer above the tag in the layers palette. So it may help to reduce the opacity so you can see your lines. So I'm just going to bring both of these way down, that way I can see where I'm drawing, and this is my new layer. And now I'm just going to do the exact same thing that I did with the foliage, only this time I'm tracing the flowers. For the stamen area, I'm just going to outline these are anthers, so just a really rough outline of the different shapes that I see. On to the next one. For these ones, the lines right here, these are called filaments, and they connect the base of the stamen to the anthers, which are these right here. So I'm just going to roughly sketch this in how I see it. It does not need to be super precise. It actually almost looks better if it's a little rougher, in my opinion anyway. And then outline the rest of the flower petals. Okay, I think I got all the petals on both of these, so let's turn off the original ones and we can see how that looks. This is all becoming final artwork, by the way. All of these outlines will be part of the final design. Now we're going to do all the rest of the flowers. So all of those are down here, and I'm just going to pinch these all together and reduce the opacity on them because that will be faster since this isn't part of the final artwork. And I'll create a brand new layer right beneath the tag. And now, same thing as before. I'm actually going to leave the stamens out of this since they're so tight. I can just imply them with lines when I'm painting them in. So there's no need to, this is pretty detailed. There's no need to get way in there and outline those. I've got all the supporting, so now I'm going to move on to the hero flowers. I'm also going to leave the stamen out of this flower. I have a brush in the ink lovers set that gives us those small dots. Since they're barely visible right here, I just want a little nod towards them. I don't need to detail them out at all. Let's turn off that group, and as you'll see, we don't have the stamens in there, but that'll be totally fine. We can turn that back on when we're painting them in, but we've got everything else roughed out now, and it's all layered properly. So now we can start painting. And I always like starting with the hero flower, so we're going to start with our number one flower right here. And we're going to continue using the ink lovers brush set, but we're going to use the watery ink wash for all of this. And I really love this brush because, let me grab the hot pink, the first one on the second row, and I need to create a brand new layer underneath this outline. So tap on the tag, create a brand new layer, and we're ready to go. So this watery ink wash brush, when you paint with it, the longer you paint with it, it starts getting a little diluted. You can see how it's starting to lose pigment towards the end. So I really love that. And we can use it to our advantage as we're painting, because when you have overlaps like this, obviously we're going to get a shadow cast, a really hard shadow cast right there. So I'll start here and I'll just continue painting, keeping my brush on the screen, and you'll see as it gets lighter towards the edge, now I've got this nice simulated depth effect happening. So I kind of think about it a little bit before I start painting, like this one's coming down, so maybe it'll be a little darker right here. So that's where I'll begin painting. And then I'll just continue painting all the way through until the stroke is finished. So I get that inconsistency in pigment transparency, and it starts getting really pretty because we get that variation. So I'm going to start like right here this time. And I like going up and down instead of making an outline of the petal. I usually, with everything else I do, I usually outline the whole petal and then I fill it in with color. But because of the way this one behaves, I have to behave a little differently. So I go up and down with it so I get that nice gradual fade. And now right here, we're going to have some more depth. So I'll get both sides this time. And then as I get closer to the top, it's going to get lighter. We can also just fill in behind the stamen. We don't need to leave that empty. All right, I'm going to have a shadow right here. Make sure I get that in there. I'll get a little lighter towards the tip of the petal. And that's our flower, and we need to pop in the stamen now. So I'm going to create a brand new layer, grab the brightest orange color, which is the second to the last one, and we'll change our brush to, let's grab the dyeing marker brush, reduce the size down to like 6. And this one gives me like a scratchier look, but it's definitely more dense. So it's gonna be really obvious where the stamen is here. And I like going out of the lines personally, so I'm much looser as I'm painting. And there's our flower. So when I was practicing and putting this whole composition together for you, I played around with adding some petal lines, and I actually really liked how they came out. So I think I'm going to add them to just our main 4 flowers. So these 4 right here. I'm going to create a brand new layer right above. I'll switch back to my peculiar ink and that darker green color. And all I'm going to do is just draw a few really inconsistent lines here to show the folds of the petal, just to give it a little bit more detail, especially for the hero flower where you're wanting people to look. It's supposed to grab attention. This is a nice way to do it. Whenever you want someone to pay a little bit more attention, make it a bright color or add detail where you wouldn't normally add detail to other things that are similar to it. So scale, color, and detail all really help. And that's it. Now it looks a lot more special than it did before if I turn it on and off. That flower is done, so I can group those together. Now we can move on to this one. And we're not going to paint everything. I purposely left some of the foliage, just line art, to break it all up so it doesn't feel so heavy. So this will go pretty quickly once you get into it. This one is going to be the next darker pink color, and once again using the watery ink wash, doing the exact same thing as before. Keep in mind this is a fold right here, so you'll want it to be a little darker right here. Let me make sure. Yeah, I got to create a brand new layer. Tap on the tag, create a brand new layer, and now we can paint So if I paint this highlight, and then I need this edge to be a little bit darker, so I'll start right there and then work my way down. Let's take care of the stamen on this one. Create a brand new layer. Once again, I'm going to use that bright orange. So it's the second to the last one on the top row. And let's grab the sticky ink this time. Come back down to like 6% and just do some blobs of color here where the anthers are. And then switch to the lightest yellow, create a brand new layer, drag it underneath those anthers, and we'll switch to the solid ink brush for this, but make it small, like 2%. And I'm just going to add some extra lines here. This brighter pop of color right here, I feel like gives it a little bit more attention since it is one of the hero flowers. So even though I've outlined them, I'm purposely making sure I draw near them so they pop out a little bit more. Once again, I'm going to add those detail lines. So create a brand new layer above everything you've done, switch to the dark green, and grab your peculiar ink brush. That's all set, so we can group those together. We're ready to move on to our background larger flowers now, so this one and this one. We'll start down here first. So make sure you're beneath the tag, create a brand new layer, and I'm going to grab the third from the last yellow right here, or the second one if you're going this way. And we'll switch back to the watery ink wash. We've got our brand new layer. Let's paint these ones in. This one we don't see very much of, so it'll go pretty quickly. And we'll make sure that we get that little hint of a stamen in there as well. I mentioned that I had a brush that would work well for the stamen. Let's grab the darkest color that we used for our outlines, create a brand new layer, and at the bottom we've got little dots and scratchy dots. I'm going to use the little dots one for this one. Let's see the size. I actually think that's pretty good. So you can just draw as many in here as you would like, and that will give a hint to that. You've probably noticed that I was painting on top of the outline, and we want the outline to be on top of the color. So I'm going to need to grab this outline and drag it above what I'm working on. I don't want to forget to do that later, so I'm doing it right now. And that's all there is to it. That one's all done now. We can add those detail lines though. Let's do that. This is the stamen, so create a brand new layer, grab the peculiar ink. I still have the right color selected because of those anthers, and I can just add my little detail lines in, make everything nice and consistent. On to the next one over here, we can group what we just did, and I'll create a brand new layer. This one's going to be a bit of a brighter orange than the last one, or yellow. So let's switch to the brightest one, second to the last one. Switch back to your watery ink wash. I have that brand new layer right above the group that we just made, and I'm going to paint this in. Once again, totally fine if you go out of the lines, unless it bothers you. The stamen for this one is going to be brown. I'm going to create a brand new layer, switch to, let's do the sticky ink for this one. And I'm going to grab the brown. I've got my brand new layer. Paint that in. Create a brand new layer right above it. Switch to this kind of purpley color. It's the third one on the second row. And then grab your ink blobber brush. And I'm just going to put a few dots that vary in size here. And we can also add lines to this one. So create a brand new layer, switch to your outline color, peculiar ink, and this is the last one we're gonna add detail to. We've got all of our big flowers in, and now it's time to take care of our supporting flowers right here. Let's group what we just did together. And beneath these two groups, I'm going to create a brand new layer. This time we're going to use our darkest orangish yellowish color. So it's the first orangey color on the top row. Switch to your watery ink wash, and let's paint in these supporting florals. And don't forget, we also have one over here. Now we need to paint our stamens in on this one. So I'm going to create a brand new layer. I'm going to turn on our template for this so I can see it better. Looks like I need to move it above my painted layer. And on this brand new layer, zoom in here so we can see, I'm going to grab my simple scratch brush and switch to brown. Let's see how this looks. Let's make it a little bit smaller, 2%. Yeah, nice and scratchy. So I'm gonna paint this in super rough. I'm trying to get that texture. Maybe I'll come up to 3%. Let's turn off that template. Last big step is just painting in our foliage now. And I like doing these little sprigs right here, a lighter green than the other ones. So I'm going to take care of the sprigs first. I'm going to grab the lighter green, and this is going to go behind everything we've done. Let me group the anthers and the petal color together. Create a brand new layer right beneath them. Switch to the watery ink wash. I got the light green. I'm on a new layer, and I can just paint this part in. You might need to reduce your brush a little bit since we're working on smaller elements now. It also looks like I'm overlapping this, so I need to make sure that this layer is behind my foliage layer. There we go. I think I'm gonna make this that lighter green too. Create a brand new layer right above it, and we're going to switch to the middle green. And this is the part where you pick and choose which ones you want to have color and which ones you don't want to have color. So I'm just gonna kind of sporadically make decisions and make sure that it feels balanced as I move. So you just got to pick one to start with. I'm choosing to start with these ones. And then I zoom out, I check everything and figure out where's the next one that would look good. So I've got quite a bit going on right here, and I want to make sure that I have a bit of balance. So maybe I'll make my biggest ones down here, the green, just to balance that heaviness out. But I'll leave this one hanging off without any color. I'm going to do this one. And I think that might be all that I need. I'm starting to think I should have had dark green for this one because I have a lot of light green right here. So I'm going to erase the light green and go back to my new layer and paint this one in dark. Because I've got that darkness right here, I want it represented above it too. All we have left is to put in your message, whatever you want it to be. I'm going to create a brand new layer right above my tag, switch to the brown, and I'm going to grab the solid ink brush for this and write my message. Because I'm putting two words here, I'm going to put them on separate layers so I can reposition if I need to. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I will see you next time.